My name is Al-Mohamed, and I am thrilled to welcome you to tonight's Doc Talk discussion. I'm an author, a disability policy strategist, and for its relevance to today's discussion, I'm here as a blind filmmaker. Now, before we jump in, I want to take a few minutes to recognize our presenting organizations tonight. So the Doc Talk discussion is brought to you by the Carroll County Arts Council. And the mission of the CCAC is to culturally enrich Carroll County by presenting and supporting a wide variety of arts opportunities. It is also brought to you by the Film Lovers in Carroll County, or FLIC. This Arts Council club of film buffs uses the art of cinema to inspire, inform, and entertain the audiences of the Carroll Arts Center. So these guys put this together for you. So we're all thrilled to have you. Tonight's film, which hopefully you've all seen, is Dealt. And wow, is it a fantastic film that we have to talk about. So Dealt is the story of one of the most renowned card mechanics of all time, Richard Turner. And for decades, he's astounded audiences around the world with his sleight of hand. And what many folks didn't even realize is that he's completely blind. And the film gives us some insight into his colorful life from his tumultuous childhood to the present day. And it's about determination and daring and more than a little magic. So I can't help but think about the quote in the trailer. People have introduced me as blind, but what does that have to do with anything? I'm Richard Turner. You can introduce me as that. All right. So one last thing before we begin. All right. As you know, I said already, today's special event is presented by the CCAC and FLIC. And if you want to see more amazing events like this, please make sure to donate on the CCAC's website. It'll be posted in the chat window. And it's https carrollcountyartscouncil.org/donate. Again, that's carrollcountyartscouncil.org/donate. As you know, we live in unprecedented times, and right now, entertainment and art is what's seeing us through. So viewers can post questions in the comments for the Q&A portion. But first, and the best and my favorite part of today is to introduce a couple of amazing panelists. So I'm going to ask them to tell you a little bit about themselves, because we know if I do it, I would leave out the best parts. First up, we have Chris Nusbaum.
Thank you, Day, and hi, everyone. It's an honor to be a participant in this panel with these two very wonderful fellow panelists. My name is Chris Nusbaum, and I have the honor of being a board member of the Greater Carroll County chapter of the National Federation of the Blind of Maryland. That is the chapter of the NFB that serves as the organization serving blind people in the Carroll County area that is made up primarily of blind people, and we might get into a little more of that. Also, I'm a board member of the National Federation of the Blind Performing Arts Division, which is a national organization within the NFB that deals with the specific concerns of blind performers. I'm a musician. Currently, I'm a senior at the University of Lynchburg in Virginia. It's my last semester, yay, where I'm a communication studies major. And I'm a lifelong Carroll Countian, and I have a long history with the Arts Council, so it's a lot of fun, and I'm really excited to be a part of this documentary talk tonight.
Fantastic. And our other guest is Dave Thomen of D's Magic.
Hi, thank you, Day. Thank you, Chris. It's a pleasure to be part of this panel, and I'm, unlike Chris, I am not from Carroll County. I call Pennsylvania home originally, but have been part of the Carroll County community for 35 years, specifically in Hampstead, Maryland. In fact, my first event at the Arts Center was back in 2010. It was called Just Another Magic Monday. It was one of my favorite named shows ever.
I love it.
But I started as a magic as a kid, got out of magic, got into other parts of my career, got married, went into the Army, had a real life, real job, if you would. And then for the last 2 decades, I've been working professionally, full-time as a magician, both performing and teaching. You can find me on WJZ, CBS Baltimore. I'm one of Baltimore's best magicians, and I've been told that's fake news. Finally, I'll just let you know I have 15 years of membership combined in the Society of American Magicians, as well as the International Brotherhood of Magicians.
Cool.
Fantastic. Thank you both for being here. So let's dive right in. So this is a question, actually, I think I'd love to hear from each of you. What struck you most about the film? What piece of Richard Turner's story or magic got to you personally, and why? And I'm going to start with Dave.
Well, I knew the movie, of course, before this panel, and I was fond of Richard Turner. I've seen him lecture, but I became quite a huge fan when I especially realized that I could watch this movie with the audio description. And I had a chance, I spoke with Day and Chris, I had a chance to do that before the movie. It was great to see that way and hear it that way, I should say, because as much as I'm intrigued by Richard's story, Laurie's story, I didn't know anything about Laurie. I knew nothing of his sister. I knew nothing that she had the same scarlet fever that evidently led to the ailment. And it was interesting to me to see how early in their lives, they both went separate in terms of how they approached this challenge in their lives, and now how parallel their lives are today. Richard is 66 years old, so he's in the senior years of his life and probably closer with Laurie than ever. So I was very intrigued, not by his story, but also his sister's.
Yeah, I like that. That's the neat thing. A lot of times when you see a biography or anything like that, it always focuses on the one person, and you don't always see how it parallels and connects with the other people in their lives. And I think you're right. That is one of the powerful pieces about the film. Is it's about not just him and what he does, but how it connects to his family and how those bits kind of work together.
Absolutely.
So what about that resonates specifically with you? I guess I'm going to see, this is where I'm going to be, Eve, I'm going to dig a little bit personally.
Go ahead. Dig in.
So about that personally then, that maybe resonates with you in your life. Because I mean, that's what we all watch films for, and we look for those things. They're insights into others, but they're great reflections on ourselves.
Well, I tell you, I spoke to Richard 10 days ago. I don't know if you're digging in more with me before you go to Chris.
Oh yeah, and I'll promise.
I spoke to Richard 10 days ago to try to get a better analysis of his practice habits. Because when someone says that they practice with playing cards 10 to 20 hours a day, 7 days a week for 22 straight years, I mean, basically, he's taken Malcolm Gladwell's law of 10,000 times 150 in his life, okay, in terms of just with playing cards. But then the karate, he wanted to be an actor. He wanted to have a body of Ben-Hur, a Charleston Heston, if you were. All the goals that he was able to attack with such ferociousness in his life. This is so, it's kind of violent in a way in terms of how he attacks his goals. One of the things I asked him, and I wanted to find out, is how do you keep going? Like, how do you, we all get tired, right? But he's like, well, how do I not keep going? It was totally the opposite thought process. Not like how, if he's exercising, which he has not missed a workout in 49 plus years. He broke his thumb during a workout and kept working out. His thumb that he needs on his left hand to do 80% of his card work. All right. So the tenacity of it all, I guess, was just so overwhelming to me. But yet how down to earth he is. And just as a human being. Didn't you see the love connection with his wife, Kim? His son, the dog. Just all that. There's just so much love this throughout that movie as well. So I'm so inspired, as you can tell.
Oh, absolutely. I got it. And I have to admit, they attacked his goals. I'm like, that's it. I mean, I love the way you put that. That really does capture it. So how about you, Chris? What struck you most about the film?
So I come at the movie from a very different perspective than Dave did, because I came at it from very little knowledge about Richard or about magic, or definitely about card magic or the practice of or the art of being a card mechanic. In fact, not only did I not know much about magic, I didn't have much interest in it. And as I reflect more about it after the movie, I think that what I perceived as me not having any interest in magic was really me not having an interest because I was never really able to appreciate the art or the performance because it was never accessible to me. It was always so visual that my mind would wander every time I saw it. And so I just kind of resigned myself to the fact that it was something that I wasn't going to enjoy. And so now here comes this movie where not only is this kind of magic accessible, but there's this blind guy who is actually the magician, or as he calls himself, the mechanic. So, like Dave, the kind of combining stories of Richard and Laurie uh, were the things that stood out to me, but for different reasons. On an emotional level, for me as a blind person, I connected to both of them.
Hmm.
I connected to Richard in that I related to and still do relate to Richard's longing to do everything he could to make sure he could do and be normal. That kind of elusive concept of normalcy, whatever that means. And we're dealing with that right now because of the pandemic and because of everything else going on in our world. When we talk about normal, well, what does that mean? We could go on all day to talk about that as kind of another philosophical rabbit hole that we could go down. But to keep it on topic, I can relate to that. However, I think, is in the process finding a situation where he still doesn't know for himself that he's blind and that it's okay to be blind. Whereas Laurie has come to accept that, and to accept that by using the alternative techniques that blind people use. She's using a guide dog. She's using assistive technology. She's using Braille, where Richard isn't. Now, let me not be misunderstood here. I'm not judging Richard in any sense. I don't want to do that at all. I'm not comparing Richard to Laurie. What I am saying, though, is that I think what was reacted to by the sighted audience as admirable, Richard doing so many things normally, not like a blind person would, is actually not that great, in my opinion. Because I think there's an underlying insecurity there lurking just beneath the surface. And so I think there are these two different emotional things going on, both of which I could relate to. And they're both doing really well for themselves. So I don't want to judge either of them. But I had very mixed emotions in that aspect as a blind person from that angle, going through that experience in my own life. So that was a very kind of interesting emotional space for me to be in.
Wow.
Yeah, I was gonna say, do you think, and it's just a thought that I'm kind of curious about. Do you think it makes a difference for somebody who may acquire vision loss later in life? I mean, granted, he was pretty young and started versus, let's say, somebody who has been their entire experience. And I don't know how true that is, because a lot of this is based on how does the world see what blindness is, and people getting caught up in what that definition is instead of creating your own.
Oh yeah, I mean, I was born blind, and excuse me, and have always been totally blind. So my whole experience has been what David's experience is now, or not David, not Dave's, what Richard's experience is now. So, you know, I have a very different perception than or a very different historical life experience, I guess, than Richard does. So I guess in that sense, there's a difference. But at the same time, I think there's still where it still comes together is an emotional level of acceptance. I mean, somebody can be totally blind since birth and still into adulthood not accept the fact that they're blind and that it's okay to be blind. I think that's the more important thing, to accept the fact that it's okay to be blind and that it's okay to, quote unquote, act like a blind person. You know, one of the other things that stuck out to me was that there was a high school friend who was interviewed for the film, and there was a clip of him, and he said something along the lines of, I'm paraphrasing, that Richard didn't want to act blind. Mm-hmm. And so he did some things throughout his life that he really shouldn't have done. And as a blind person, I kind of bristled at that and said, like what?
Yeah.
Based on what perception of blindness? So, you know, I don't know. I mean,
can I add something here, Dave?
Yeah.
Jump in. This
is remarkable, Chris, hearing this, because I read your story in the Baltimore Sun 2 days ago, and that was a great for me to know your background as it compares to Baltimore and Richard's.
My story in the I have a story in the Baltimore Sun.
You were in the paper Wednesday.
Oh, okay.
You might want to Google your name and Baltimore Sun when we get done.
Okay.
You had a nice story in the paper Wednesday, and I was in the paper Thursday, all about this panel. Wow.
Okay.
Hey, what happened?
I fell down on the job, you guys. What can I say? I fell down.
Yeah, wow.
You're in DC news. You're in national news. You're on American Airlines.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But
I mean, I know I had something like 4 years ago, but I didn't know about this.
Well, and anyway, in reading your story, Chris, what I wanted to tell you, when I teach magic, I want students knowing that magicians understand something, a part of the mind that audiences are really unaware of, which makes illusion real. Because if you remember, there was a moment Richard talked about, he didn't realize he wasn't seeing anything. You remember that?
Yeah.
He thought he would be seeing his hand. He thought he was visualizing things in the medicine cabinet, but he realized his imagination took over that strong. And it makes sense, because a magician's imagination is probably second to none. Mm-hmm. All right. Where Lori didn't have that, you know, and I get it. Card mechanic, there is correlations between magic. Di Vernon is a magician, not a card mechanic. You can do not just card tricks, but all kinds of magic.
Yeah. So, which is now, yeah. Oh, sorry. I'm going to let you make your point. And then you know the question I'm going to next.
Yeah, I know the question. But so you got to realize when Richard, you know, he was stubborn. He was bullied as a kid. You know, he thought the blindness would make him weaker. But what I found intriguing at the end was how he was on that keyboard with Laura. You remember at the end? They were in like their kitchen and he was learning how to do things on the keyboard. And Chris, there's also a deleted scene in the movie where he's sitting in the bedroom with his sister and they're talking about like how their eyes look as blind people.
Yeah.
Fascinating dialogue between the two of them. There's great deleted scenes in the movie. I recommend buying the movie just for that reason.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, and that I think is what's so special about being part of what's so often called the blind community, because there are only certain groups you can get involved with where you can have those conversations in a very open, very honest way with people who get it. Day and I think both have that experience as part of that community. And I thought back to and still think back to as we talk about this, the people that I've seen come into our chapter, the Greater Carroll County chapter, the NFB of Maryland, since we started it in 2015. The vast majority of the people who have come into our meetings and who are and have been members of ours are people who have lost their vision later in life, from various ages. A lot are senior citizens, people who have lived out the majority of their lives as sighted people, and now here they are in their golden years going blind and wondering what they're going to do with the rest of their lives. So they come to us looking for a community that will get it. And I think sometimes they come looking for a group they can commiserate with. And what they find is a group of people who are loving life and enjoying life. And I hope that gives them some hope. I'll very, very, very quickly tell one story because, and then I'll hand it back over to you, Day. I just want to recognize it because the lady in the story we learned just passed away 2 weeks ago, a member of ours. She was a member of ours since for 2 years, I think, something along those lines. And I hadn't met her for a while, but all of a sudden she became really active. She went to one of our picnics and she told me that she came to our group thinking that she was just going to find people that she could be miserable with, because that's how depressed she was. And then she found that we were going to lunch after our meeting and we were just laughing and having a good time, and and she got caught up in it all. We were having fun, and that was what she was missing. She told me that we were the ones who put hope back into her life. And that's what I'll always remember her for when I think about her. And so that's what I've been thinking about since I've learned that she passed away. But anyway, I think that's part of what Lori found. But if you look in those conversations between Richard and Lori, there are only a few people in the grand scheme of things who you can have those conversations with in a very open and honest way, who can encourage you to accept situations like that because they've been there too.
Absolutely. And those kinds of things can be strengthening. I had a meeting recently, and I guess this is one that if I wish Richard had earlier, which is I like to fence. I play with swords. I compete doing it. And we had a discussion that came about related to something else. They'd asked several folks would please come on to give a discussion about sword work. And so I'm a blind fencer out of Washington, D.C. They had another woman out of Chicago, another one who's deafblind out of Seattle. And basically, you know, we gave our presentation, and then afterwards, all of us went to little online digital hangout bars, we called it afterwards. And we did our own happy hour. We talked about sword work and the tricks and tips you can do as a blind person who did sword work. And so it's kind of one of those things where it's a commonality. And it's just, okay, how can I be more badass than the next person? And so the idea of that, the idea of community can mean any number of things. You know, part of it is disability, but also part of it is, dude, we just all really love sharp, pointy things and sticking them at other people.
That's awesome.
So, you know, that is what kind of one of the things that brings people together, are the love and the passions they have around things, which is where I'm going to pop back to Dave, because again, there's that whole passion around cards. And I heard you say it, I heard Chris say it, and it's card mechanic and card magician. And I'm like, all right, what? I don't get the difference. Can you tell us?
Yes,
can you
absolutely.
show us?
I can tell you. In fact, there's a moment in the movie, many moments in the movie where someone shuffles the cards, puts them in front of Richard, and then he can manipulate them and get them back in what he calls new deck order. All right, you know, where all the cards are running in suit and numerical order. And, you know, magicians would watch that saying, well, yeah, you can execute that with magic. There's things that you can do magically to make that happen. But he's not using magic. He, with the U.S. Playing Card Company here in the Midwest, he is a touch expert with them. I mean, he controls, he can retain cards, he can rearrange cards, put them anywhere in the deck under the guise of completely mixing them up. And even when someone mixes up the cards, he can start getting those cards back to where they need to be to basically do what no one else on the planet can do with a deck of cards.
Wow.
Jason England, who is in the beginning of the movie, very successful magician. If you just watched his card work, you would say it was the best. And he talks about a Pharaoh Shuffle. A Pharaoh Shuffle is when you have 52 cards in the deck and 26 cards. You're able to divide them equally, and they all intertwine perfectly, right? Well, a good magician doing a Pharaoh Shuffle, or what you might refer to as a riffle shuffle on the table and trying to get the cards interlaced that way, a good magician will do it maybe 50, 60% of the time. So you got to realize he's hitting it all the time.
Wow. Yeah, it's one of those, the movie talks about it as being amazing, but I think it doesn't really put it in the context like you just did.
Now, and with that being said, let me throw something out here. Right here, for example, is one of his 7 DVDs that a magician can buy. Do you remember the scene? There was a magic convention and there were magicians there and at his table, and they were selling wares and things like that. Really, what he sells is knowledge. What he is selling is knowledge. He's not selling trick playing card decks or anything like that. He's selling books. He's selling DVDs, Blu-rays, you know, that type of thing. And this one here is called, this is one of 7. It's called The Science of Shuffling and Stacking. Have the cards go or stay where you want. The second deal, the concept of taking a card, the second card in the deck, you're dealing seconds, not the top card. That one technique could take 7 years to learn. Just to give you some perspective on the practice involved. And I don't mean like 7 years, you're doing it like just on Sundays.
Well, you just blew me out of my question. So I'm like, wow. Now I do, the next one, actually, I do have for you a little bit, which is a little more on you, because this is why I do all the first questions broad, next on the film, next one is so in the film, Richard talked about how he'd started with that reel to reel, and it was a 1902 book about manipulating cards.
Yes.
So I'm kind of curious on
I'll tell you what that is.
Yeah.
It's Di Vernon. You remember Di Vernon in the movie saying, no one in the earth can do what Richard Card does with cards. By the way, Di Vernon was his best man at his wedding for Kim.
Oh.
Oh, that's
There's a
amazing.
scene in his wedding where Kim is left at the altar because him and Di Vernon are practicing cards at another room. I'm not making any of this up. This is how crazy it is. He does get married, and Kim obviously loves him. And you see the martial arts. There's a lot they share in common. But I'm sorry, where were we? Oh, Di Vernon. So this book, Di Vernon, in 1902, was called Expert at the Card Table. Now, Di Vernon didn't write the book. The book is written by S.W. Erdenes, which is a pseudonym. This gentleman who wrote the book was one of the best card cheats ever, and he wasn't going to tell the world who he was, if you follow me. So S.W. Erdenes and the Expert at the Card Table that's a pseudonym. There's actually a book coming out by magician Todd Carr, probably in a year, that he's going to finally reveal who S.W. Erdenes is. And it is a rewrite of also a 1900 book, which is, the graphics and the literature in it obviously is well dated.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a re-edition of this book. But what Di Vernon did, see, if you want to learn how to do magic tricks, you can find these secrets. If you want to learn how to cheat at cards, oh no, those secrets aren't written down anywhere. Card cheats, hustlers, all that stuff is hold close to the chest. Di Vernon went all over the world to meet card cheats and find things that were never written about. And he would only teach people what they were capable of learning. He left nothing on the table for Richard Turner.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying?
That's amazing. So it's like, Richard Turner is the guy to learn this from.
Well, here's the thing. One would argue, okay, if he's not the best card person on the planet, he's maybe one of the top 10. But Chris, let's think about this. If you're the best person in basketball, you're probably Kobe Bryant. Everyone knows you. You're making millions. If you're a best person at, gymnast, you're in the Olympics. But if you're the best person at cards, no one really knows who you are.
Right.
And you're pretty modest in terms of your wealth and whatnot. You know what I mean?
And what was interesting to me is that Di Vernon didn't really believe much in him at first, wasn't really impressed by him at first. He was just kind of like, yeah, okay, whatever. And eventually, I don't know if it was that he worked with Richard over time, or
he worked 17 years with Di Vernon. No one was probably closer to Di Vernon than Richard Turner. Many people, I'm a few degrees removed myself as a student of Di Vernon in terms of who I learned my magic from. You follow me? But no one has had more personal contact than Richard Turner as it relates to Di Vernon.
So how did you get your start, Dave?
Well, my start was as a kid. Like most kids, you get a magic set, and I never grew up. My magic set, though, stayed with me. It stayed with me as a tween. As a teenager, I would maybe do 10, 15 shows a year. I thought it was pretty cool. I wasn't a close-up magician. I started as a stage magician. And then I got out of magic for about a decade. I went into the service, got married. We have a lovely family, 2 kids. Went to school, got a business degree, did all the things that I thought we're supposed to do. And then I had a calling to get back into magic when my youngest was born. My youngest daughter has a condition called Smith-Mcginnis syndrome. It's a genetic disability. And she is the chief creative officer for my company.
Wow, that's pretty awesome.
That's her gift. She lives with us. In fact, if I was doing not this panel right now and doing a magic show, she would be part of it. She would help me make a dove appear, and we do all kinds of things together. Cool. But so it was when my daughter was born in '92. I rediscovered that magic set, if you would, Day, and it's been a part-time job turned into a full-time career.
Cool.
Fantastic.
And we will have a sample at some point once I know we're ready to do that. So
we will. I think I have one more question for Chris.
No rush on that. I know some people want to see me actually do what it says magic.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I was like, we have it. It better show up, or I'm going to get in trouble. That's what's going to happen. So I am actually kind of curious, Chris, on your part, because you this is like where I said I'm like I cheat a little bit and do that. I want to hear about you guys as a part of this and the bits of the film that connect with you. And you mentioned that you had related a little bit, particularly Richard's youth and some of the little wild ideas and the things blind people do that they shouldn't. You even said you bristled at it. So I want to know if you can give us some of your dirty little secrets of things that blind people shouldn't do.
Oh, I want to hear that.
Richard, that you did.
Chris, you have 25 minutes. We're not doing any magic. We want to hear all this.
This is one of those questions where you're going to make me draw a complete blank.
No.
No, I'm kidding. I don't know. And what's interesting is that most of the stuff that I didn't think blind people should do, I ended up doing at events that were supposed to be for blind people. Stuff like grilling, stuff like doing stuff with a chainsaw, stuff like I don't know. The first thing I thought of when you asked me that question was the first time I was in high school, and I went down to the NFB, National Federation of the Blind, headquarters down in Baltimore. They have this big charcoal grill out back on their patio. And here's this guy who said he was going to teach us all how to grill. It was an event for high school students. So this blind guy, he says he's going to teach us all how to grill some burgers out on this charcoal thing. So he's a totally blind guy, remember? And I don't know if he's totally blind, but whatever he is, he's got sleep shades on. He's got blindfolds on to, I guess, make the point. And he lights the charcoal up. And I mean, this thing is on fire, got a, really roaring fire going on. And I'm like, okay, somebody's going to get hurt here. So somehow nobody did. But that's just one thing. I think of another time when, okay, here are some things that you should use. You should have your cane for if you're going to do it. Like, there was one time when I was on vacation and I didn't take my cane with me when, I was going to the hot tub or something. However, whatever I was doing, I was at this at this house that we had all rented. We were going on this big family vacation, and my cousin, I was walking with her, and I wasn't paying attention. I didn't have my cane. She I misstepped and fell off the side of the pool and side into the pool and pulled a muscle in my leg, and that was the rest of that week. So that was some interesting times, but I don't know. I haven't had nearly the stories that Richard has had, but I will tell you.
Documentary, okay, yeah,
yeah. I will tell you. Rock climbing was another fun one, but but I will tell you that there are a lot of things that I've done that have been meant to be confidence boosters for blind people, particularly blind kids, when they go to camps and stuff. And I've thought, between climbing or doing something in the shop or that grilling story I was telling you about. And I've thought, there is no way I'm going to be doing this. There's no way a blind person's going to be able to do this. And every time I've done it, the person who's been showing me how to do it has been blind themselves.
Oh, wow.
So it's there. You have to be creative. And that's, I think, something that I took out of Richard's story, that there's a lot of creativity that goes into blindness.
Mm-hmm.
But there are a lot of things that if we think outside the box enough and we develop the tools enough, we can find ways to do a lot of stuff that you might not on the surface think is possible.
Awesome. Now I do have one last question, but before I get to that closing question for both of you, let's see some magic.
All right.
Yeah.
We want to do that.
Let's do it.
I'm excited about that. I mean, that's kind of what I do. Oh, wow.
Hey.
What a
Oh,
great
cool.
what a great response of a sound effect we're getting here tonight from the home theater. Wow. Thank you. My name again, Dave Thomen, but when I do this, everyone just refers to me as D. One letter, you can't mess that up, right? You know, Chris, you might not know about this about me. I'm bald. And so there's always a joke that, you know, the magic hat, what it did to the top of my head. Okay. You know, I get asked as a magician if I hide things in my sleeves. I get asked if I hide things in my pocket. And what I hide in my pocket, everyone, is actually simply my pocket. In my pocket is the subject of Richard Turner, or his prop. His favorite brand of cards are B. B-E-E is the name. And would you all say we should believe in Richard Turner, right? This pocket is empty. And I actually want to start some magic off with everyone who is listening right now, because I'm going to try to think about what you're about to think about. I'm going to make something appear inside this empty pocket, and I'm going to see if it's something perhaps that you're thinking about. So everyone listen. Did you hear that? Maybe that was a bat hitting a ball or a hockey stick hitting a puck. But I need everyone out there listening right now to think of a major team sport. Think of a major team sport. Got it? Now, focus on the second letter of that team sport. Think of that team sport and focus in now on the second alphabet letter of that team sport. Got it? Now, think of a fruit that begins with the second letter of that sport. In fact, maybe you're tasting it. You're tasting a fruit right now that begins with the second letter of that sport. But now think of the last letter of the fruit you're tasting or smelling now. Let's change the letter again. Think of the last letter of the fruit. And finally, I want you all to think about something that you would eat for breakfast. Think about something you would eat for breakfast. Is anyone out there thinking of an egg? There is an extra large egg in my hand right now. If you're thinking of an egg, know this: I have my breakfast for tomorrow. Thank you so much. But I use magic with eggs because I've manipulated more eggs in my life than I have playing cards. But, you know, we're going to focus in on Richard Turner. In fact, it is indeed a big deal for me, as I hold these big fan of cards, that I can be representing the magic tonight of Richard Turner. In fact, as a magician and seeing his work with cards, other magicians may feel this way, Chris, everyone. I'm now holding cards half the size that he uses. Yes, although within these big cards, twice the size of normal cards, I'm able to find a full deck of mini playing cards because I've been told, everyone, that I play with a full deck. And if you think about it, as a blind person, the odds were stacked against Richard Turner in being the world's best card showman, which, and holding this card castle, that's how I really think in terms of Richard Turner, not as a cheat, because cheat sounds dishonest. The movie DELT as an acronym stands for dreams, excellence, analysis, loyalty, and tenacity. And I've taken those approaches to magic in general, not just card magic per se, but all types of magic. Richard uses a B brand of playing cards. They're the best cards made. They're made by the US Playing Card Company, which makes probably the most commercial cards that we're familiar with. You probably, if you have a deck of cards at home, they're probably this brand bicycle, probably in a blue box or a red box or something like that. And in pulling these cards out here tonight, I need to let all of you know that in seeing these cards, you need to realize that I don't have the face cards in this particular deck. I have removed, everyone, the face cards from this deck, and I'm going to tell you why. No joke. I'm going to see if these playing cards, in my mind, can be puppy dogs. Now, I'm not joking with you. In fact, I'm going to hold up 2 jokers. If you look at the bicycle brand playing card, the jokers actually in the corners look like they have dollar signs on them. But no joke, I'm going to see if we can't create some magic tonight just by rubbing those jokers together. Wait a minute. What is this? I'm rubbing jokers together, and did I make, oh, well, actually, I guess the joke's on me. It's a not a bill. It's a $0 bill. Yeah, if you think you can rub jokers together and make money, that's not going to happen. But, you know, when we had dogs, I didn't have to worry about money. Growing up, we would always go to a shelter to get dogs. Until recently, we have 2 Maltese. They're sassy sisters. They're siblings. They're 4 years old, and I love them. And again, I'm going to think of these cards here as puppy dogs. Now, a face card can't be a dog because it has a face on it. That's why I've removed the face cards from this deck. In fact, this King of Diamonds and I, we have something in common, Chris. There's a crown on top. And if everyone who is watching, you'll see that he's tipping his crown to you, that king, isn't he? And you can see we actually share the same hairline. But let me get back to this. Let me put that crown back on there. And see, this is not a puppy dog because it has a face. It's a face card. So it's only the aces and numbered cards, ace through 10, that are indeed our puppy dogs for tonight. Now, I don't know, Day, are you able to hear me? She might be muted. Can anyone? Day,
I can hear you.
I can hear you. I just needed.
Oh, you can hear me, Day? Okay, Day, do me a favor. You have a dog, don't you?
I do have a dog.
Named Gamma?
I do.
Now,
Correct.
we never met. I'm a magician, right? So, but I didn't interview you about your dog or anything like that, but that probably is on your Wikipedia page, I would imagine. Hey, how old is Gamma?
Gamma is 8.
Okay, so we're going to use an 8, and you can choose club, diamond, heart, or spade. Which one do you want to use?
Spade.
We're going to go 8 of spades. So this is now Gamma, everyone. The 8 of spades here is going to be Gamma, and it's no longer the 8 of spades. It's no longer a playing card. Now, here's what I mean by this. Let's look at this card here. You see that as a 10 of hearts? I don't see it as a 10 of hearts. I once had a dog named Scamp, and he was a Shih Tzu, and he looked like that. Wonderful dog, adopted from my grandmother. Wonderful dog, a Shih Tzu. I shit you not, a wonderful dog. But yeah, you got to realize, even though this playing card now looks like it has a face of a puppy dog on it, even though you can perhaps hear it as well. You got to realize that this card, everyone, is simply a playing card. We're just playing with your imagination right now. So we're going to use your card there, Day, the 8 of spades. And we're going to put it into the kennel, the card box. And I had to tell everyone, if you were here live, you can examine the cards, the card box. I do this weekly at a restaurant before the pandemic. We're going to see if Gamma can come when called. So, Day, can you say, here, Gamma?
Come here, Gamma.
Yes, that's what we're going to do. We're going to see, everyone, if we can't, and Chris and everyone out there at home, I want everyone out there right now, do me a favor. Can you call for Gamma? Go ahead.
Here, Gamma.
Keep calling, please.
Come here, Gamma.
Keep calling, please.
Gamma, come on.
Gamma, come on.
Wait a minute. Keep calling. Wait a minute. Keep calling.
Come on, Gamma.
Gamma.
Day, do you see something coming out of the box there by itself?
I think so.
That's Gamma.
It's Gamma.
It came out, it rose out of the box when you called it. And you know what? In addition to a seeing eye dog being my favorite, so is this. Yeah, see, I just pulled an animal balloon dog out of the playing card as well. So
she's probably so confused right now.
We're having a doggone good time here tonight. Would you say that? We're having a doggone good time here tonight. It comes to playing cards. And all of you watching here, we're not done. We're going to open it up to more questions here. But in terms of my magic, I want you to think this way about the magic you've seen tonight. Richard is the biggest card man possible. So the only way I could end this is by displaying the biggest card fan possible. You are a royal flush of fun. You are my love of Richard Turner. Thank you all for watching this little magic here, and I hope you've enjoyed it as well.
Fantastic.
Thank you so much.
That is awesome.
Gamma's probably like super confused right now.
I know. Call the pecker and it's like, oh, it's all good, dog.
What happened? What happened?
I was like, I found a replacement for you. Just needs a really long harness handle. So, all right. So, I know we're running a little late on time here, so hopefully folks will forgive us a little bit. I just have one last short, quick question for both of you guys.
Sure.
If you could go ahead and quickly
answer. Go longer, it's no problem.
Awesome. And afterwards, if you could just give us any individual websites, organizational websites, hey, how can we find you? But the last question, I'll start with you, Chris, which is what makes films like Dealt important?
I think what makes films like this important is that a film like Dealt gives the sighted world a glimpse into what it's really like to be blind. There are a lot of perceptions out there about what it's like to be blind, some more accurate than others. But when you get a glimpse into the real life of a real blind person, it's something special and something that is hopefully more enlightening for everybody involved. So I think that it's important for the sighted world. It's also important for blind people to use as an educational tool. So I think it's an enlightening experience for everybody. And I hope this panel has been an expansion of that. But I'm really happy that this movie has been discussed and has been made, and that the Arts Council has chosen it for a Doc Talk.
Fantastic. Do you have any links or resources that you'd just like to put out there real quick?
Sure. So the Greater Carroll County chapter of the National Federation of the Blind of Maryland is always open. Our meetings are currently being held virtually, as is everything else, on the second Tuesday of every month at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. You can get the contact information for us at nfbmd.org. That's the website for the state organization, the National Federation of the Blind of Maryland. And you can also, I'm sure, get my contact information from Day, or I can put it somewhere. If anybody needs my contact information, you can get it. But nfbmd.org is where you find all the information.
Fantastic. Thank you. And Dave, how about you?
Thank you, Chris. That was it's been great working with you. Dave, just to make sure before I give out my contact information, was there a question also? I want to make sure.
There was a question, because I'm gonna try and do double duty here. That is what makes films like Dealt important.
Why are films like Dealt important? Mm-hmm. Well, when I think of the documentary like Dealt, and not all documentaries are inspirational ones, but this one definitely was. In fact, can I get into the acronym a little bit? Yeah. Please. Okay. I just want to discuss that, because Dealt, you should be thinking as an acronym. Richard is one of the highest paid speakers in the world. He's with one of the largest speaking bureaus in the world. And there was an inspirational talk about his life, and he talked about dreaming. Richard had 4 young goals as a man. He wanted to be an actor. One could say he accomplished that, not just with Dealt, but there's a movie called The Tree of Life that stars Sean Penn and Brad Pitt. And there's a dream scene in that movie where there's a hustler, a card shark, and he's in that movie.
Oh, wow.
They're making a feature film of him right now as we speak as well. So he wanted to be an actor. I think he accomplished that. That was one of his dreams. He wanted to pick like Bruce Lee. We all saw the karate. He has a 6-degree black belt. And realize when you get a black belt, it's not like boxer where you're boxing the same guy 10 rounds. You have a fresh person every time. All right. It's extremely difficult. And the fact that he did that without being able to see is incredible. So his goals, he wanted to have the body, of Charleston Heston and Ben-Hur. He definitely has a nice physique, and he wanted to live on Jackson, Queens. You remember the Maverick movie, the Maverick show, the living on Jackson, Queens. He didn't know what it meant, but he's made a living on Jackson, Queens. And so he's accomplished that dream, but I want to talk about his loyalty. I want to get to the L. I'm going to jump there, because he's been approached by crime families, the mob. He could have walked not the integrity line and be a much wealthier man, but he's not, because he understands the importance of the E in Dealt, excellence, the Malcolm Gladwell rule, the rule of 10,000 hours. He's definitely exceeded that and then some. Very important analysis he talks about. I know how to juggle, but I'm not a great juggler because my practice was never perfect. Practice does not make perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect.
Mm-hmm.
If you're practicing something wrong, you're just learning to do something wrong really well.
That's right.
So it's not practice makes perfect. It's perfect practice makes perfect. And he's a big stickler on that in terms of his analysis. That's what the A is. L is for loyalty, and T, of course, is for tenacity. Think of your life as a novel. This is how he describes his life. If you were reading a novel and the character in the novel was always happy, could kind of get money whenever they want, always had the love interest, everything went well. I mean, it's probably not an intriguing novel. I mean, where's the conflict? Where's the challenge? So he talks about his life that way every day. See it as an adventure. Yeah, we're being thrown all kinds of crap, but that's part of our novel. That's the conflict and challenge that we all have to deal with, no matter who we are. So that's obviously what I took out of that film, and any documentary that inspires us. I look for personal inspiration in anything I watch. And you can find me on davemagic.com, D-A-V-E magic, all one word, .com, davemagic.com.
Fantastic. Thank you both so much. And actually, that's it for my questions. And for those of you who are out there watching tonight, this is your chance to ask any questions. Please go ahead and put them in the chat box. And they'll be put on screen and read by our very own Dave.
And this is where we wait for questions.
Okay, should we just address these questions? There's a question is how it is amazing that Richard practiced 16 hours a day, but don't all high performing artists of all kind practice a whole heck of a lot? And how much do I practice? Discipline is a very important part of practice. I did not have a lot of discipline in school. When 18, when I told my mom and dad I was going to grow up and be a magician, they said I couldn't do both. So,
Yeah.
my older sister at the time, I enlisted in the Army, and I was inactive in reserve. And that discipline that I got from being in the Army, and perhaps where Richard White at 17, he got into karate. A lot of the discipline for his card work he's gotten from being in karate since he's been 17 years old. So I practice quite often every day. It's called toying or playing. This home theater stays up. So even when I don't have anything, I'll come down here, I'll just shuffle cards, I'll manipulate something. Magicians call it kind of like playing or creative time. Think of it as a piano player. A piano player doesn't want to know how to play a song. They want to know how to play all the scales. They want to practice all the scales. If they know all the scales, they can learn different songs. So I practice scales, not necessarily music, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. And as a pianist and a singer, I was just going to connect it to that. So thank you, Dave. But let me say this as a musician in response to the question. You say it's amazing that Richard practices as much as he does, but don't all great performing artists practice a lot? Yes, they do. But I think the difference between practicing and what Richard does, at least from my perspective, is there's setting aside time to practice. There's setting aside a lot of time to practice. But when your art form so consumes your life, so saturates your life, that you're practicing 16 hours a day, that you're carrying your cards with you everywhere you go, and in every moment where your hands aren't doing something else, they're shuffling cards, which is literally what he's doing. That is a whole other kind of practice, which I've been around a lot of performers throughout my life, and I know it's not the same kind of performance, but that's a whole other level.
Yeah.
I'm sorry?
I was going to say, Chris, that's obsessive compulsive behavior in a nutshell.
Yeah.
It's not healthy. I mean, his wife will say that. But, if he was playing violin, he couldn't have a deck of cards in his left hand 20 hours a day. You follow me?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
It's what it is as well. In fact, when he's at church, he has playing cards that don't have anything on them. If you follow me, they're just like pieces of paper, so he can literally still be practicing, even though Kim doesn't want him to have playing cards in church.
Well, and I just thought of something. No wonder he doesn't read Braille. His hands are always busy reading, playing cards.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
How is Richard able to do tricks with face cards and then their placement in the deck while blind? Were they special cards? Very good question, Frank. They are not special cards. In fact, I'll give you an example. When he had his home carpeted, the guy, of course, knew who he was and said, well, you obviously have notches in your playing cards. You just can't do that with any certain playing cards. You remember there's a moment where he can name a number and he'll grab that many cards and the person will count it, right? And it's that number, right? Exactly. Well, he bet the person doing the carpeting that he could do it with his business cards. By the way, he nailed it and got free carpeting in his house.
That's cool.
So, Frank, he doesn't use any special cards. His touch is so powerful, it now has a scientific certificate with it. And they say he maybe could tell the difference in weight of snowflakes.
What?
Well, I know. That's how crazy it is.
Wow.
And I should say, before anybody goes with Well, of course you can, because, when you're blind, your other senses get heightened thing. I know Day's laughing at me, and I know exactly why you're laughing. Um, that is a very common myth, but a myth it still is. So actually, what people might think of as heightened senses are, in fact, senses just being used more.
True. I've just heard it, and I'm like, oh, they haven't been around me. All sorts of no, terrible things I do. But, but I think that's all we've got for our questions, and I know we're a little over time. So I just wanted to thank you, both of you guys, for being here and kind of sharing your expertise and also sharing your own experience with the film. It's been amazing.
Thank you. Thank you, Jay.
Thank you so much.
County Arts Council.
Yeah, thank you so much. This has been a lot of fun, and I hope everybody has had as much fun listening to us ramble as we've had bringing it to you.
Absolutely. Special thanks to the Carroll County Arts Council and the film lovers in Carroll County. And of course, most especially thanks to you guys for joining us for this month's Doc Talk series. Sadly, it is the last of the series we have right now, but film lovers in Carroll County have a new series that starts next month, which is foreign films. So carrollcountyartscouncil.org/foreign-films, and you can see what they have on tap. So obviously this is just one example of the amazing programs from the CACC. So if you get the chance, do visit us online at carrollcountyartscouncil.org/donate, right? And donate. So take care, and thanks for joining us tonight.